Welcome back to an indoors GBGuns video because I've got something important to talk to you about. Coming up next on GBGuns. Of course, we can't have a proper debate without agreeing upon terms. So what is porting? What am I talking about? Porting has been around for, I just put that gun, there we go, for quite some time. This is a Bull Transmark M5 jet made 25 years ago. And you can see these holes in the slide, and you can see those big old holes cut in the barrel. Those are ports. And the concept behind it is those hot expanding gases that push the bullet out the barrel also will vent up, pushing the nose of the gun down, making for a flatter shooting pistol. This is why in a pistol like this, or like this, that's competition oriented, ports can be a desirable thing because they make the nose a little bit flatter. And the flatter the nose is, of course, the quicker your follow-up shot could be. It's enhanced even more on guns like the GTI Combat, where the other trick here is this is a shorter slide than you'd imagine, so you have less reciprocating mass. It's also why there's windows cut into the slide. So those are the pros of porting, is that you get a little bit more nose control, a little less flip. But why am I, as a defensive shooter, cautioning about ports? So ports add in controlling the firearm during recoil. That seems like a great thing, and it is. However, it's through the expulsion of hot, fast gases in a direction other than towards the enemy or towards the target. So let's say you're driving in your car and you are attacked, someone coming to the driver's side door, and you go to fire. Where are those ports pointed now? Right at my face. Okay, but Graham, I can train, I can be aware, I can know my firearm. Good. So you scoot back here, now you've still got all that pressure being pushed right in front where it's going to bounce off the roof of the car and come right back at you. Now this scenario, let's say you're knocked to the ground in an imperfect area, something that hasn't just been swept and mopped previously. The same folks who are concerned about windows in the slide seem to forget about windows in the barrel. And I'm not really so worried about stuff getting in there. I mean, this one's pretty huge. This is clearly a competition model. But if you're knocked to the ground and you're shooting from the side and you have to take some type of quick shot at this angle, for example, where those ports pointed right at the ground, let's say you're only inches above the ground, now those ports are going to kick up all kinds of junk, either obscuring your view, temporarily blinding you, or truly physically blinding you, as well as maybe a little bit of dazzling and things like that. People talk about flash. I'm not so worried about the flash disturbing sight picture. It happens so quickly, unless you're in a really, really dark environment, probably too dark to be taking a legal shot anyways. It's not that big of a deal. But you could be blinding yourself. The third aspect of this comes from plated bullets. You see, after some of the smelters got shut down and other supply chain issues, more and more of our common loads and ammunition that we're used to buying and we shoot on the range are plated versus a full metal jacket because it's cheaper to make. The problem with that is, and some of the influencers on YouTube have been discovering, when you fire a plated bullet through a ported barrel, that bullet traveling speed of sound or beyond, when it hits those cuts in the barrels, it can shave off a little bit of that plating. The least of your troubles would be on a flat range practicing with a way out here. Maybe you get showered with some little pieces and remnants. Not a big deal. You've got eye protection on, you've got a hat on, you've got ear protection on. Probably gonna be okay, just a little surprising. And then a little frustrated at accuracy. The accuracy issues come because, well, that's gonna cause some drag as well as remove some weight from one part of the bullet. So as the bullet flies, it's no longer balanced. It's also been interrupted in its path. It's less stable. And so you can end up with even keyholing out of some high quality double stack 1911s that are ported if you're using plated bullets. Let's translate that back to defensive shooting. What happens if your hollow point is keyholing? Yes, it's still going to smack them. It's still going to deliver some energy. Not as much energy as if it had its full speed. And that hollow point may not open as intended, so you might as well just be shooting FMJs. You're not going to get the effect you intended. The other thing with the accuracy issue is you're legally, morally, ethically, criminally liable for every round fired in a defensive encounter. That means you better not shoot unless you're damn sure where that round's going to go. If you're going to be throwing your round off target a little bit by having some cool ports for faster file-ups, where's that round going to land? And what obligations are you going to have to deal with after the fact? Does that mean that an innocent gets hit? Does that mean additional property value? Does that mean not stopping the bad guy in time to prevent him from doing the bad thing he was trying to do that you were trying to stop him from? So these are all serious considerations about ports on pistols. So does that mean they're all bad? No, not at all. And guns like the TTI Combat, a competition-oriented gun, it can help with faster splits once you adjust to it. I recently, in fact that's why this one's dirty, took a newer shooter out who was from a country where shooting firearms casually is a very difficult thing to do, and wanted him to try out a bunch of different guns as well as teach him a little bit about shooting. And I brought this gun in part because it's very easy to shoot well, and the same stuff that works well for competition shooters shooting faster works well for teaching. But even he noticed the recoil impulse was different on this. It wasn't as much flip, and of course also we have a shorter slide here, so that felt a little weird for him. It was very cool to see a newer shooter experience that. They are a great thing for changing felt recoil. It doesn't necessarily reduce recoil, but definitely reducing muzzle flip and allowing you to stay on target a little bit faster. They can be louder as well, which, going back to defensive things, sure, there's loud and then there's too loud, and too loud and above is where most guns are anyways. And having been in some gunfights before, only in uniform, not as a civilian, I can tell you that once the noise gets going and your hearing is gone, it really doesn't matter too much. But if I could reduce that loudness, I would. Next question would be, if ports have such great things for some but are terrible for other applications, why are we seeing them on the market? My answer to that is probably because it sells. They certainly look sexy. Trends happen all the time in the firearms industry. We've seen them plenty of times. The patrons and I just a couple months ago were kind of going over all the trends and even the trends that have recycled, such as ports. Also, with so many new shooters out there, offering ported guns helps make shooting a little bit easier for them. But note that on defensive guns, even this, like Smith & Wesson, it's not exactly your cutting edge company. They make good stuff for sure, but it's a giant corporation with all kinds of slow moving mechanisms. They're not quick to jump on things, but even back when these guns were coming out, in the performance model, they offered a ported barrel. They did it the easy way by just having the barrel stick out a little bit longer and cutting a notch in there. And believe it or not, it makes a wonderful difference on this gun. This is a fun gun to shoot. Love this little thing. I don't care about the gold accents. The EZ380 is a great little gun. But the other bit is putting ports in allows companies to take an existing product line, cut some holes, and call it good. They're not having to invent something new. So it is a way to stir up some extra interest. Is there maybe a safer middle ground if you really need ports for your defensive gun? This guy, and yeah, it's got a Sharps Row grip module on it, might be the closest if you're absolutely necessary. This slide is from the SIG 365 X Macro Comp, which actually was the original name of it. It changed to just being called the Macro, I think. But the way they did this is the slide has holes in it, and it's using a 3.1 inch barrel. The standard barrel from a 365 is put into an XL length slide that has holes cut on it. This creates somewhat of an expansion chamber. In fact, you can see the muzzle end of the gun is quite large looking and puts some gases upward. It's not as effective as some of the other models, but you're getting uninterrupted full velocity, however, from the 3.1 inch barrel, not getting the 3.7 inch barrel that you would have in a regular XL. So we're still shy on velocity to have a larger gun, and the compensation effect from this is not as great as it would be if it were holes drilled through the slide and barrel intact. Is it that big of a deal? I don't know. I didn't think we needed comps in the first place. I certainly can enjoy the benefits of them, but it's not necessarily something that I would carry. Now, as a range toy, it can be fun. If you're one of those people who just enjoys making a lot of noise, I totally get you. I've got a short-barreled Mosin Nagant 7.6254R. I get it. Letting the thunder out is fun sometimes. I've got a 6-inch 7.6239. That thing makes some thunder as well. But when it comes to a carry gun, this is where I want to advise and have you guys be aware of and think about this, because we've seen the trend rise, and I just came back from SHOT Show 2025 where it's definitely all over the place. We're going to be seeing a lot more of them. Here's another one. Ironically, I don't even know if this is still available. This is an older one, but this is the Sarcellmaz P8L. You can see we've got window cuts in the slide that kind of look reminiscent of those vent cuts on an old hot rod, which is neat. But look how tiny those holes are. Just little tiny holes in the barrel for minimal loss of velocity. And of course, we've got plenty of room in the slide cuts to let that stuff vent no matter where the slide happens to be in its cycle as that gas is expending. Smart design. Is it as effective as the big chunks? No. But it's better than none. Would this make for a good defensive comped gun? I still don't think so, because with those tiny holes we're going to have, when you have the same amount of gas in a smaller hole, you get more pressure, right? So now we've got jets instead of big holes. Probably makes, I don't know, it's hard to compare effectiveness because they're all different guns. Like, this is an all steel heavy chunker of a gun. So if I say it doesn't feel as comped, maybe that's because the gun just kind of sits anyways. Without it, I don't know. But I'll stop rambling. I wanted to bring this topic up because ports are all the rage, and I'm seeing them in more and more carry guns, and you'll be seeing some of those on the channel here. And rather than me have to go through this tirade every time I do one of those, I want to put this message out to those of you that have watched it now. Thank you. You're the smart ones. You'll be the ones that know what's going on. Just think twice before you carry a ported gun. If you live in a situation where that's never a big deal, let's say you only ride a quad to work to be out in a field all day, and then you still end up in the dirt. I'm sure there's a situation we can think of. But if you're one of those, just be aware, and then make sure that your ammunition isn't plated. And the problem with that, as some of the influencers have found, is not all manufacturers are willing to disclose if they plate or jacket their bullets, even if they call it an FMJ, because really it's just a cost savings for them. That's my important thing for you to think about. I'd love to hear your opinions on this. I'm sure some of you have already started typing. And we'll see you in the next
Thank you to our Patreon supporters. GBGuns, and I do 2-level, Andrew P, Joseph T, Randy A.A.L.G, Peter A. Tom, Moses S. Fast Steady, Tyler 215, Brian P, Scott King, Derek S. Jr., Donald H. Thanks for the tip, Lever. David P. Credos, the Godslayer, Andrew B. Lee A.H., Christopher J.J.S., Farning Phones 3, Jeff O. Michael W., David G. O.K.Y. Tuba, Robert B. Ohio Cruffler, Steve Briscoe County Jr., Rich R., Red Sky Wahar, Edsy Fierce of Feta Cease, Uncle Munzie, David F., Alan B. Laura P., Andrew C. Tata Joni. Keeping things on this level, Gary B. Lafes, Danielle D. Ed Z, Jake J. Brad M, George H. Ocknell M, Cody W. Marcus, Such Hode Lewis R, Eddie P. Logan G, Brian K. RBMD 2022A, Theo B. Ron Z, Gort My NC, Tech No Con, Half Empty, CPC, 1986, Robert